I always had this desire to want to know, why does that work? How does that work? Who made that? Where's the history? The high school in Coleman, that's where we went to school, was a fantastic shop. It was unbelievable. It was on par with the tech school. And when I got hooked in metalworking, that was it. A piano, when all the wires are strung tight, there's a tremendous amount of pressure. And once a few rounds start to bust that through, a piano kind of explodes.
Really? You still owe her a honeymoon. Are we talking about that?
Well, I always tell her, every day is a honeymoon.
Yeah.
So how do I escape? I think I've figured out a level how to keep myself content.
Eric, thank you for being on our channel and sharing your story. Well, you haven't shared it yet, but we'll get there.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. So we're in Horseshoe Bend, Arkansas. Have you always been from Horseshoe Bend, Arkansas? Where are you originally from?
I was born and raised in northeastern Wisconsin.
Okay.
A little tiny rural community called Pound, just like 16 ounces, P-O-U-N-D, Pound, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And I think
how many people live in that?
There was maybe in the village.
You say was, I mean, is it grown?
Well,
or does it
no,
exist anymore?
they had a highway bypass kind of go through it. Otherwise, it was the main vein for the economic structure of that little village, which had maybe 400 and some people in it. Ironically enough, I went and visited up there about 2 years ago, and it changed. And I haven't been there for like 17 years. So I noticed, what was different, and it significantly was slower.
Really? So instead of growing, it
yeah, when
declined.
the main highway bypassed it, that cut off a lot of the economic benefits. The restaurants all folded up, and you could really see it. But anyway, I was raised there, born and raised out in the rural part of Pound. Raised on a farm. I was raised on a lake. It was a family lake. The family came over in the late 1800s, and they chose that area because it was very similar to Prussia. The climate and logging, and that's primarily what they knew how to do. They knew agriculture and logging, and so they sent a scout in the late 1800s, a family member, to check out an area. And he got word back to the family and says, hey, this looks like a pretty good place to settle. So they all loaded up the truck and moved, to Beverly Hills, like the old song. They acquired the property on the lake, which became the family farm. They set up a blacksmithing shop and a steam-driven sawmill, which had a shingle mill and lumber and everything. And that steam-driven enterprise hired a ton of men and built all them old homes in that area.
Wow.
So they became...
It's like a family business then.
It was, yes.
Did you go into the family business?
That long dissolved in the... I think what killed it is when the income tax was invented. And they were operating prior to that. What you made was yours.
Yeah.
And now the burden on the employer was to go and separate this and do all this. And the family just said, heck with that. We're not going to do it anymore.
So when you were there, it was just a family home?
It was just a family home and the remnants of what it was. As a little kid, I remember crawling through the buildings. They were already falling in. You could see where things were. There was old oil cans up in the rafters and, but it was long gone. I remember my grandfather, he died in, I think, 77, and I was, whatever that would be, 5, 6 years old, sawing firewood. And he was, to me, an ancient man. He was 92 or something at that point, and he didn't speak English. He spoke Polish. And so him and my grandmother were, talking in their language, and I'm just hauling firewood as a little kid, and I don't know if they're mad or you didn't know nothing. But anyway, that was the last time I recall a belt-driven saw rig that he rigged up, and they were cutting firewood. So I have a little glimpse of seeing a living individual that was born in the 1800s.
Yeah.
And I tell that to my kids. It says, I saw a guy alive who was born in the 1800s, and that's like over their head.
Yeah, totally.
Now, yeah. So it was neat.
They're going to say that about about us too. People born in the
Yeah,
90s. I knew somebody that was born.
I
in
already
the
get that.
1800s.
I already get it.
That's pretty wild. So, what career did you get into while you were living there?
Well, we were farmers. My dad was a farmer, and I think some of the residuals of that old family businesses, when you're in the logging industry, you own a lot of land. Forestry land wasn't worth much, and it's like the ebb and flow of anything. Sometimes a certain sector of the economy is not in the radar, and then something happens and all of a sudden it is. So in that case, lake property became very valuable, and we had a lot of shoreline. It was incredible, and huge plots of land that were primarily for logging, and now people are interested in developing it. So that was our benefit. So my mom and dad and my grandmother, when he passed away, my grandmother had all that, and they kind of collaborated to utilize that property in that most beneficial time that they could. So farming became kind of secondary, but you did it. The buildings were there and it was easy to do. And so I was raised on a farm. As far as what I developed into today, that probably hit in school because of the school system. That whole area had manufacturing plants that catered to agriculture, forestry and agriculture. These industries would actually fund the school system for lathes and mills and welders and all that. So the high school in Coleman, that's where we went to school, was a fantastic shop. It was unbelievable. It was on par with the tech school of Green Bay and Marinette, which are neighboring bigger communities that had schools. I mean, it was very influential. So when you went into high school and you got to tour these shops and you saw this equipment, and it's like, whoa, there's something there. I don't understand it, but I like it. You get in an environment where you're overwhelmed of antique cars. You know, 5 minutes before you didn't, but when you left there, you think you want one now. So that was the influence, and I did dive in pretty deep in the metalworking program in high school, and the shop instructor was the best in the world. And not only just recognizing a kid that wanted to do it, he allowed it to happen. And he let this stuff go that you'd never get away with today. He was very, very formative on how I started. And when I got hooked in metalworking, that was it. I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I never did anything since.
Really?
What he ended up doing in your senior year, you had a 2-hour program in the morning, and you were allowed to build your own project. So I picked out a miniature gas engine. Pistons, flywheels, governor, carburetor, all that. Water cooled. Well, it's sitting on a shelf right over there.
Oh, we got to see it.
So that was done, and I got a scholarship from that. I ended up being a paid teacher, a tutor, through the school system, tutoring other students in my own class. So I was going to school, getting paid, and in that system, you have the beginning part of the day was the second year program people who were doing mold making and jigs and fixtures and all the hardcore stuff that you're not ready for in the first year. So I'm sitting tutoring one-on-one kids in my class while I'm looking over the shoulder of everybody else in the second year program getting that curriculum for free.
Yeah.
So it worked out. So that's kind of how I got into the trade, and it's
what did it
never dwindled.
What did it lead to? I mean, obviously it led to gun making. How did you get into that field?
I'll use a phrase a friend of mine who's passed away. He probably inspired a lot of it post tech school, and he called the term mechanical claptrap. He was into antique cars, he was into firearms, he was into music boxes, any kind of old technology that was fading. He was trying to resurrect it and rebuild it and all that. And he was an odd guy. I mean, by just his appearance, he's unapproachable. And he was a dentist. I got into firearms because it kind of leads from studying mechanical design. And I always had this desire to want to know, why does that work? How does that work? Who made that? Where's the history? And then once you go down them rabbit holes, now you're seeing the time frame something was built. And you're like, they didn't have very sophisticated equipment, and look at the quality that they had. And that also was a discovery and also a challenge, because I'd look at it as like, well, man, if them guys could do it 100 years ago, I am way behind the curve to the tools I have to my ability right now. So I got into miniatures, music boxes, stuff that I could call up Doc Meyer was his name. I'd call him up and say, hey, Doc, you got one of those? What? Yeah, come on over. We'll go tear it apart. And it was just like that. I had a museum at my disposal. He was a Class 3 dealer for many, many years. And Class 3 involves machine guns, suppressors, all the regulated stuff from 1934 on. One of the things that got me really interested is he had an original Gatling gun, full size. And it was one of the 4 guns used by Teddy Roosevelt in the charge of San Juan Hill. It was used in battle, that it had that history, and you just look in awe of what you're seeing right in front of you. Well, anyway, we got to take it apart, and I built some screws and stuff for him to get it all going again. It was running, but there was maintenance involved, and we would shoot it. He'd take it out. Yeah, we're going to take the Gatling out, and brought a bunch of other stuff. And so he found an old, I remember the one shoot that was fantastic. They were saving water jugs, anything from laundry detergent to milk jugs, and we had a mountain of water jugs, a wall. That Gatling gun was serviced by 2 people. You got one guy cranking and another guy loading ammunition, so it's continuous. It ain't a belt fed or drum. You have to manually load it and try to keep up with the cranker. Well, all that wall of water just got fully excited. But behind that was a piano. A piano, when all the wires are strung tight, there's a tremendous amount of pressure on that huge casting that sits inside that piano. And once a few rounds start to bust that through, a piano kind of explodes.
Really?
So between the water and the piano, it was a great time.
Well, how cool is that to see it, all the components, take it apart, put it back together, and then actually use it? That's pretty inspirational.
It is. When you see the technology, and that was I think it was an 1893 model. It was brass and polished and it's gorgeous. My brother and I, we worked together in more of a fab shop that serviced logging and farmers and stuff. Worked there for a number of years, and I just had an itch that I wanted to do something more. So we parted ways, and I started Lakeside Machine. As time went on, the company grew, and I was involved with various layers of business, from the firearm side to the other fabricating, machining side. Had a couple little projects of my own I was building, so I had a lot of irons in the fire. There was a following of a certain type of firearm that I got attracted to, and they were miniature machine guns. They were half-scale firing belt-fed 22s in replication of a Browning, air-cooled, water-cooled, and they're 50 cal. There was an original maker that started that in the 80s. The remains of that company was sitting in possession of one kind of floundering enterprise. They were not machinists or manufacturers. They were just businessmen. They could run a phone and make a deal. Making that stuff wasn't their thing. And I got to be known as the Tipman guy, because I was going headstrong into it. I wanted to know how many were made, where they're all hiding, serial number ranges, blah, blah, blah. I was tracking down anything down to paperwork, because once something disappears, it's now instantly collectible. So I started collecting them. So the company that was sitting on the remains of what was left sent me an email. It says, hey, if there's anybody who can use this stuff, it's you. So why don't you come on down and check it out, make us an offer or something like that. So they were just in Bloomington, Illinois, just south of Wisconsin. I'll take a ride down there. I made them an offer. They accepted it. And everything came back into my possession in Pound, Wisconsin on September 13th, 2001. And here I'm this young kid. I was in my late 20s, and here I just bought this gun company. It was a pickup truck load of parts, all right? That's all that was left. There wasn't enough there to build stuff, and there was too much to do anything else with. So I had the most awesome collection of antique junk pertaining to that one gun that there ever was. I made the decision that, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring this stuff all back to life, and progressed. I mean, I outgrew the shop. I ended up meeting the original guy who's passed away. Did an interview with him face to face, because you want to get all the details before someone passes away. But he ended up being when he got rid of it, he lost 50% of his clientele when they banned new machine guns from being manufactured and sold to the public. So at the same time, that guy was tinkering with a paintball gun. So you may have heard of a Tippmann paintball, Tippmann pneumatics. That's what he went into and got wildly successful. It went everywhere. So this little gun thing that he started just for a few years basically went into cold storage. So I brought it back. I replicated his first 3 and improved them, because we had modern equipment now. So from the 3 models, I think we ended up with 9.
Wow.
So it really developed into a lot of stuff. We added on to the shop. Now we're adding employees and all the layers of headaches that happen with that.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to change subjects a little bit. When did you meet, or what was your first impression of Michelle when you met her? She says she was working at a hotel.
Yeah, she was in Schaumburg, Illinois, and I was probably on, I can't remember what trip, or I was on a business trip of some sort, going through or nearby or whatever it was. She was young and good looking. I mean, checks the boxes there. You know, it was intriguing that she had a hunger for America. And she wanted to learn the language, and that was a very interesting transition. English is not her first language, and we would, at least the things that she tells me now, is some of it was traumatic, the way I would speak to what she would understand.
Yeah.
And to me, it was just like, well, this is what it is. That's what you say.
Yeah, this is what we talk up here.
This is just how it is. And besides that, we hit it off, and started dating her, and she was a long distance relationship. And sometimes she would fly up and I'd have to go down there, and it was back and forth. And she had this, I don't know if it was like an internship or a contract with, why she was here. And then we talked about being a citizen and all that stuff, and talked about her family, and she didn't have to be in the United States. I mean, her parents were wealthy in Santo Domingo. Her mother worked in the government, and I mean, he was a chemist. There was no reason for her to really need to be here, like a lot of people might think. It's like, well, she was just getting here. And I don't know. There's none of that. So we decided we were going to get married, and it was a crazy wedding. We didn't have a wedding. She had to be back in Schaumburg, so we planned it so that she could fly up to Wisconsin and go to the Marinette County Courthouse with our friends and got as the witnesses. And we got married, and you just jumped back on a plane and had to go back to Schaumburg. Was there. No.
Did you ever redo a honeymoon?
Well, as business kind of took over, I mean, I would love to say that every trip we went on, business wise, was a honeymoon, but I guess I can't get away with that.
So you still owe her a honeymoon. Are we talking about that?
Well, I always tell her, every day is a honeymoon.
Yeah. Sure. Does she believe it?
I don't know. It depends. If she's mad at me that day, probably not.
Yeah.
The business did allow us to have some pretty great times. If we had an event, say in Las Vegas, which some of the shows where we had a customer base there, we would fly in and stay at their place. Yeah. And if their residence is Las Vegas, you got the best tour guide of everything. So we would have, well over a week, and we would get toured of all the.
Enjoy it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So otherwise we wouldn't really have that opportunity. Florida, same thing.
Yeah. So you've been married for how long?
Woo, coming up on 20 years now.
So what would you say would be a key to that marital longevity?
I would say, if there could be a general term, and this is so cliche, stay out of each other's business. And I don't know how to even say that, because like my world and her world day to day is different. Each one of us is an individual. I mean, I've never inhibited her to do whatever she wanted to do, and she never did with me. But I'm a lot lower maintenance than she is. I don't want to do anything else, than be a metal worker or a designer or something like that. I'm content with that. I've learned how to find contentment and maintain it instead of actively seeking it.
Yeah.
So she's done a whole bunch of different stuff. Hey, she's having a great time, and go for it. Do it.
So what is your relationship with God?
That's an ongoing discovery, we'll say. I don't know if a human can logically answer a question that I've only been on this earth so many years. But I would say since I've retired from the general grind, I have more time in my day, and I probably think more about, we'll say generically, the afterlife, God, a superior creator, things of that nature than I've ever done before. It's a very strange subject, and it's hard to talk to the average person that is conformed to labels. Well, what church do you go to? Mm-hmm. And they're going to put you on a shelf. Well, what do you believe? Do you believe in God? Do you believe in this? And they go right down the key words of all this, and they expect an answer, a yes or a no, or stand up and sit down. But really nothing is answered. And if you really sat down and had a conversation, most people that I encounter don't have an answer, which is the humbling part of this discovery. It's like, how can you say you understand all these things? If God is the Alpha and Omega and created all things, how is a little pea brain like me supposed to have an answer to that? And if you do, I'm thinking that's a prideful way of saying that I'm a know-it-all. And I can't put that math together. And I find myself, and I often said when I do field work on the farm, and I'm driving a hay mower or a hay rake or something, I'm in the tractor, and I'm using 5% of my brain to do that task. The rest of it is whirling. And as you're doing that, you can kind of invite all these thoughts from, what am I doing here? And all this, and you seek that answer. I don't think I'm going to get that answer from another man, to be honest with you. If I do converse with someone who's receptive to that conversation and can admit that they don't have all the answers, I would much rather have that conversation with somebody who could admit, I'm in the learning stage and I don't know, let's figure it out. To check some boxes, do I believe that there is a supreme creator, an ultimate creator of everything that we know of? Absolutely. That cannot, nothing happens to this complexity by chance. I feel we are a vessel, and the Bible says we are a vessel. We have a vessel that is holding something. It is evolved into a term, maybe calling it a soul. We are a recording of our life existence. We've been told biblically and through many religious writings that we have something that is desirable to something we can't understand. If I told you you have something valuable in your pocket, that's yours, you're going to be more aware and you're going to want to find out what that value is. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm not an expert on Catholicism, being Baptist, Methodist, Lutheran, all these labels. I'm not an expert. Throw Muslims and Jewish, all these baskets of religions all over the world, and each one has a little tweak, a little bit different. That is not attractive to me. I know all that can be boiled down to something solid. What that is at this moment in my life, I don't know.
I don't know is a fine answer.
So I'm in full discovery mode. That's my nature. Mm-hmm. I like to take stuff apart, analyze it, and that's where I'm at on that.
Okay. And all the things that you do, what do you do to get away from it all? What's your break from the grind, from that analytical mind of yours? How do you peel away from it, or do you never?
I would say I'm going to go back to a word that I have It's stuck to me, and that word is content. In this business, I've met a tremendous amount of people from coast to coast, and some in varying levels of, worldly stature, we'll say, and some of them are not content. And some are chasing some form of being content. The reason why I use that word is I had a pivotal moment in my life, probably in 2009. We had an ice storm, and I had to deliver a product to a guy, and I didn't really know him. I know he was good for the money, we'll say, for the product. So I delivered it, and I met this guy, and he took me into his building of fun stuff. Okay. And after I'm driving home, it was mind-boggling, the toys, big boy toys this guy had. He's significantly older than me, and he had hired guys. He had 4 guys working full-time every day just to keep it all running for his amusement, restoring it, getting it ready for a show or go. 4 guys full-time playing with the stuff that he's not allowed to play with because he didn't have the time. And I'm driving home, and I'm like, man, I always had this hunger for wanting a little bit more, a little faster, a little this and a little of that. But I would never have what that guy's got. There's no way I could set that bar way out of my reach, obviously. And he still wanted what I had. And I was thinking, wait a minute, this is not. And driving home, and I got a lot of stuff, all right? I got enough stuff to swamp myself through the rest, and I wouldn't even want all the stuff he's got. To me, it was like, man, what a nuisance. You got 4 guys hired. How do you keep that stuff washed and waxed and oil's dripping on this one and blah, blah, blah. He had rooms full of fantastic stuff. It was absurd. So coming home, I'm like, I'm talking to myself, you better figure out what makes you content, because that dude surely hasn't figured it out. And he's old. So how do I escape? I think I've figured out a level how to keep myself content. And that's a very prized little nothing. It is. In your day, because you can recognize it, and now you know how to maintain it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's not there, and you're constantly chasing what you think is going to make you content. And it won't, because you're in the habit of constantly chasing, not acquiring. When I quit working, we got into small animals. I'll give you an example. I quit working. I told the guys online, and the following we had, so I'm done. Quit. No more Lakeside. We're done. They're like, what? What happened? The ATF come busted in here, or you sick? You're dying? What happened? Bank for all the stories. I says, nah, I'm not just going to do that anymore. Well, what are you going to do? I'm going to milk some goats. And literally, that's what I was doing. And here's the thing. I could come into the shop, and we had 7, 8 guys running around. So by the time you make a circle and find out everybody's little problem and how this, and you got a couple hours in that. My goats, I unlatch the gate, open it up. The first one, every day, every time, she trots right up on the bench, milk her out. She turns around, and she puts her head on your chest for her morning ear scratchings, or not a beller, not a bleat, no nothing, just mechanical every day. She goes back in, number 2 comes out, does the same thing. After 4 or 5 of them, they all do the same thing. And I don't even have to open my mouth. That is great.
Yeah.
Now, as I'm
break.
getting all that done, and I can look across the field, and I can see the deer coming out while I'm milking the goats, and the dogs are around. And
it's almost like you built your break. You built it.
Yeah, how do you pass that
Horseshoe
feeling?
Bend, Arkansas is your break from the ground.
Yeah, that all of that has a feeling.
Yeah.
And how do I hand it to you?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
You don't.
That's how I get away. That's how I figured it out.
That's really cool. So building businesses throughout all those years, and then baking a journey towards contentment, mm-hmm. and then creating a life of contentment. Eric, thank you for sharing your story. We appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time. You were unexpected. We didn't expect to share your story. So I really appreciate it.
I've got a couple rules of thumb, and this has been engraved in me somewhere. What everyone else is doing, do the opposite. Okay? There's rule number 1. Rule number 2, If everyone else is doing it, whatever that it is at the moment, it's got to be wrong. Everybody else is doing it.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you so much for taking the time.
bet.
We appreciate you.
Eric's story is a remarkable journey of self-made success and a deeply analytical search for life's meaning. After decades of shaping and forming his own business born from a love of working with his hands, Eric chose to consciously build a new life of contentment, proving that true fulfillment is not found in chasing more. Eric found it in appreciating the simple, mechanical rhythm of life on his Arkansas farm with his wife Michelle and their 2 children. Thank you, Eric, for taking the time to share your story. Until next time, thank you for watching.